If you're a returning viewer on the Legacy of Survival channel, make sure you subscribe right now so you don't miss any of these deep dive historical guides. Because today's topic takes us into the fieldcraft that kept soldiers alive when the difference between being lost and being found often meant life or death. These navigation hacks weren't written for theory. They were born out of necessity, shaped by mud-soaked trenches, blackout conditions, and missions carried out in territories where carrying a glowing compass or lighting a lantern could expose your position instantly. What makes these methods worth revisiting today is that they still hold up. They remain usable, practical, and quietly powerful, even in a modern world full of GPS satellites and digital maps. If you appreciate forgotten wisdom that still has teeth, stay with me for the next few minutes, because these WWII navigation tricks deserve a place in every survivalist's toolkit. The way soldiers followed terrain signatures to stay oriented even without a compass still works. During WWII, Allied scouts and patrols were trained to read the land the same way they'd read a map. The idea was simple. Recognize terrain signatures and you'd never drift too far off your intended line. These signatures included valley angles, ridge lines, tree growth patterns, and water flow direction. A patrol leader in the Ardennes could orient himself by noting that streams fed northwest toward the Meuse, or that the steepest slope typically faced the prevailing wind side of the ridge. The method required discipline. Soldiers would study a planned route in advance, then match the ground to the map as they travelled. The trick still works today. Start by taking a topographic map of the area you're travelling in and memorising at least 3 major terrain features, such as the direction of drainage lines, the orientation of the highest ridge, and the shape of the nearest valley. Then compare the terrain around you every few hundred metres. You'll be surprised how quickly your brain begins stitching the landscape into a mental compass. How WWII troops use the sun's shadow movement to maintain direction without exposing themselves. Lighting a match or pulling out a reflective compass in enemy territory was risky, so troops often relied on the slow but dependable movement of shadows to stay on course. The technique was brutally straightforward. Plant a stick or rifle vertically into the ground, mark the shadow tip, wait 10 to 15 minutes, then mark the new position of the shadow. Draw a line between the 2 marks. That line points roughly west to east, with the first mark being west and the second being east. Soldiers didn't always have the luxury of stopping for a full setup, so many used a faster variation. They'd note how the shadow on their own body or gear shifted relative to a landmark: trees, rocks, destroyed vehicles. The movement always followed the same arc across the day. You can use this today whenever GPS drops, especially during long hikes, or when trying to maintain a consistent heading without checking a compass constantly. Just give the shadow a few minutes to move and let the earth handle the math. The way soldiers navigated by sound when visibility dropped shows a skill most people no longer train. Fog, smoke, and night operations made visual navigation almost impossible. In places like the Pacific jungle or North African desert, troops learned to rely on consistent environmental sounds to stay oriented. Running water, distant waves, railway lines, and even the hum of enemy machinery became reference points. A squad leader might say, "Keep the surf on your left or move until the river noise grows louder, then turn downslope." This wasn't guesswork, it was disciplined listening. To apply this today, start with one controlled exercise. Walk a trail blindfolded with a partner spotting you, using a river, road noise, or wind direction to keep consistent orientation. You'll quickly realize how sound fills in gaps when sight fails. For actual off-grid navigation, identify predictable sound sources like a creek, a highway, or long-winded gusts rolling through a particular valley, and use them as steady directional anchors. WWII patrols use star lanes and simple mental constellations to navigate faster than you'd expect. Not everyone could memorize a full star chart, so soldiers were taught star lanes, visual pathways formed by aligning 2 or 3 bright stars to maintain direction. In the North African campaign, the Big Dipper's pointer stars toward Polaris were a constant guide. In the Pacific, Orion's belt often served the same purpose. What made these lanes effective was repetition. A soldier didn't need the whole night sky. He needed 3 dependable guides he could recall under stress. To use this today, start by choosing one constellation you can always find. For northern latitudes, Orion or the Big Dipper works well. Memorize how they move across the sky during the hours you're most active outdoors. Practice aligning one edge of the constellation with a distant landscape feature. Once you get used to checking your heading every 20 minutes, you'll stay surprisingly accurate. How troops followed human movement patterns to find routes without maps is still useful in modern survival. During WWII, especially in rural Europe and the Philippines, local movement patterns gave away the safest and most reliable routes. Soldiers watched where footpaths converged, where livestock trails angled toward water, and where wagon ruts avoided steep grades. These features acted like organic road maps. The principle remains the same today. When navigating unfamiliar terrain, without clear direction, look for consistent path behavior. Trails that sink slightly but stay smooth are usually long-used human paths. Narrow, winding, shallow tracks that lead downhill are often animal trails heading toward water. Wider paths that hug contours instead of dropping directly downhill suggest long-distance routes optimized for endurance. Following these clues can guide you safely even when the landscape feels disorienting. These are the kinds of navigation tactics that kept soldiers alive under the toughest circumstances, and the best part is that every single one of them still works if you take the time to practice. If you want more deep, practical history like this, make sure you subscribe, share this guide with other serious history buffs, and keep exploring the forgotten skills that deserve a place in the modern world.